Hey, greetings. Thanks for stepping in with me again. This is a big week. I noticed a lot of energetic shifts in myself, those around me, uh, and across the spectrum of human experience, from what's happening in the Amazon and the fires in Alaska and Siberia to things that are shifting on the ground politically. Economically, we're seeing shifts, and I want to just sort of bring all that into the picture of this moment, because I think it's easy to get really overwhelmed by it all. And so we have to have a different filter on everything that's happening in us and around us, a filter that doesn't breed fear, but one that actually ignites love. It's a time to really put on those rose-colored glasses. And I know that that sounds um, to some like a spiritual bypass, like I'm not really connected with the pain and suffering. But I think anybody who is the least bit alive and empathetic right now felt the pain and suffering of the planet in a very profound way as we sat and I saw, I do spend a fair bit of time on Facebook because I see it as a pulse to what's happening out there. I don't get caught up in the actual details as much as just watching the sort of meta trends, things that are beginning to shift, the commentary, the topics that were once taboo, were once considered fringe, are now becoming more and more mainstream. And I think that's what we should be paying attention to, is the shifting currents, not so much the froth at the top of the current, but really the deeper currents. And so I want to bring that to the healing conversation, because I think in order for us to even believe that harmony is possible, we have to begin to recognize it happening around us. And so I watched, as you did, this is a picture from the Amazon this week of the horrific fires and the debate over who lit them, why they're burning, what the motivations are not as important as just noticing the impact, the converging frequencies of fear and panic around our mortality on this planet. And I saw a lot of existential grief coming forward in my tribe, in the greater community, in the world at large, as we watched our lungs burn. And when the rains came and knocked out, I think it was 40% of the fires, you could feel the collective sigh of, oh, please, thank you, Mama Gaia, thank you, Pachamama, thank you, Mother Earth, thank you for bringing the healing waters down on the flame of our unconsciousness. There was a visceral harmonizing of energies and feelings I felt and witnessed this week. And I began to sit with that and think, okay, there are a lot of people who feel it like I do and recognize it as our re-embodiment of our connection with Mother Earth, that she is screaming at us to pay attention to her. And we're hearing it and feeling it inside our bodies at a cellular level. And those who feel it like I do, this is, on the one hand, can be inspiring to notice that billions of people woke up and paid attention to something that was happening on Mother Earth. Because we can pay attention to the little stuff locally, like fracking around us. We fight it and we lose the battle and we think, oh, well, You know, they're doing it next door anyway. We almost sort of have become complacent to our own interaction with the assault locally to us. But this felt global. This felt existential. This felt beyond personal, to the connection of all of us, that, you know, we could feel our extinction in the fires blazing around the planet. We can feel our extinction in the loss of huge ice sheets off Greenland and the Arctic. We can feel, you know, the movement of the earth underneath us in ways that we've been pretty disconnected from. So I was feeling into this, and as it turns out, a lot of other very sensitive souls are feeling into this as well. And as we begin to ask the question, how do I make a difference in this global sense? Charles Eisenstein, who has written some beautiful books, I'm still on his Yoga of Eating. I have his other books, but I have not yet gotten to them. But I know just from the essence of them, which comes through in places where I've seen his videos and read his words, he's tapping into something that I tap into, and probably you tap into. It's the collective understanding of what's really happening in this moment. And so I want to share with you his video, because I think it does a really good job of summarizing why this moment is worth paying attention to, but not getting distracted by. And so with that, I want to share this video with you, and I'll disappear for a few minutes and then I'll come back. About 13 minutes.
Really deeply affected by what's happening in the Amazon here in August 2019, as deforestation has...
Well, not sure what we did wrong. I think I punched a wrong button, but let's get this back. Here we go, Charles, you go.
Reached double the rate of last year, as the red line of logging and fires, many of them set deliberately to clear land for soybean plantations and cattle plantations and sugarcane or whatever else, as that red line encroaches deeper and deeper into what should be the heart of the Amazon rainforest, as indigenous people are getting suppressed, as protected lands even are getting logged and destroyed. I mean, it's just horrifying, and I feel sometimes these waves of helplessness, and it's like the grief is so strong. What do I do with that energy? I've noticed a kind of a trap, like a diversion that says, take that energy and hate somebody with it, blame somebody with it, divert it into rage. I'm not saying don't be angry, but what I'm saying now, and what I'm recognizing in myself, is that that detour actually makes me less capable and less powerful and less active, actually, in doing anything about the situation, because the solutions that the hate invites are essentially to fight somebody, to find an enemy and engage in a war with them, and if you win the war, then the problem is solved. Bolsonaro or the illegal loggers or the ranchers or whoever it is, or the consumers who are consuming these products. But when you follow, so okay, this blame and hate, the real problem with it isn't so much that it's, okay, I mean, it is one problem, a diversion away from the grief that really keeps me honest in the world. Another problem with it is that it diverts attention away from the set of conditions that's actually generating the problem, the set of conditions that gave rise to a Bolsonaro, the set of conditions that's motivating, that's incentivizing the clear cutting of land. And that set of conditions includes so much. It includes economic conditions, the global debt regime, that forces countries all over the world to liquidate their natural resources to generate foreign exchange to make their debt payments. It includes the psychic climate, the ideological climate that holds Earth as not alive and not conscious and not sacred, but is merely a thing or a collection of resources. If those things don't change, then even if we take down Bolsonaro, there's going to be another Bolsonaro. There's going to be other people responding to this systemic pressure to find something to convert into money. And why not the Earth when it's just a thing? So as a response, when I understand the deeper conditions, I'm not limited to fighting somebody, to engaging in a war, which is actually hopeless because it's a war against the military, industrial, agricultural, pharmaceutical, NGO, educational, prison, industrial complex. I mean, it's the entire system. And they're much better at fighting than I am. They have the power, they have the guns, they have the money. I'm not going to win that war. The plan, rather than winning a war, is to change the conditions. And everybody can be part of that. Because when the conditions are everything, then any act of healing will ultimately affect the Amazon rainforest too. Sometimes maybe you are blessed with the opportunity to do something directly to help the Amazon. More often, if you're living in the United States or Germany or England or India, the opportunities at hand may not be to help stop the logging in the Amazon. The opportunity might be on a much deeper level, not a better level, but a deeper level, to contribute to a shift of consciousness, to perform acts of care and ecological healing or social healing. I mean, it's all part of the same project, the healing of this earth. But it could be ecological healing where you are that affirm that you care about life on Earth, that invite the planet to stay alive. Imagine you're on your sick bed and you're really suffering and you don't know, do I really want to live? Do I want to stay here? What gives you the will to live? It's if people love you, if people need you, if you're valued, if you have a community, if you're not alone. Here we have Earth on a sickbed. Therefore, everything that you do that affirms that you want a living Earth, not a dead Earth. Everything that you do that is in service to life, everything that you do that comes from love of a place or of even a person, a community, all of that is a prayer and a message to Gaia saying, we love you, we want you, we need you, you are not alone. How are these remote actions going to actually help the dire situation on the ground in Brazil? I don't know. But I trust the principle of morphic resonance that says a change that happens anywhere creates a field of change so that the same change begins happening everywhere else. The change that I'm talking about on the deepest level is a change of heart. It's a change of perception. It's a change in our story of the world that orients us toward what to do, what's valuable, what's important. If we can create a morphic field for that, imagine what Brazil will be like when millions of people there have a change of heart too. So we can join in a global change of heart and a global change of our story. That's my plan. I don't know how specifically it's going to change the situation in Brazil. But I do know that I I've learned to trust, let me put it that way, or I'm learning to trust this causal principle. I'm learning of morphic resonance. I'm learning to trust that intuition, or I would say that innate knowledge that every act has cosmic significance, that no act is wasted. Are we ready to live by that? Because that is such a different mindset than the mindset that has destroyed this earth and the mindset that generates despair. The mindset that has destroyed the earth and the mindset that generates despair is really the same mindset. The separate self in a world of other, interacting by force to make change happen in a mechanical, dead universe where nothing I do could possibly be enough. What if the universe doesn't work like that? What if everything is interconnected? What if self and other are interwoven intimately, and there's a mysterious connection between what happens inside and what happens outside? What if we are part of a living universe? In that case, the despair is illogical. And that's why I think it really is time to step into that new and ancient story of who we are and what the world is. And that doesn't mean that we magically all of a sudden have a plan to stop deforestation in the Amazon. But what it does mean is that we know the next step, or that we are able to see the next step when it is offered to us. Because that's a heart function. When the mind has no idea how to get from point A to point B, ironically, I'm waiting for an airplane to pass by. When the mind has no understanding of how to get from point A to point B, at least we can recognize the next step toward a destination that the heart knows exists. I call it the more beautiful world our heart knows is possible. It's irrational, because the mind is like, how could we ever get there? Look at all of the obstacles. Look at the powers arrayed against us. And that's simply because the mind has been, if you grew up in modern society, the mind has been immersed in a logic of separation. Not that the mind is useless, it just needs to be realigned to the logic of interconnection, interbeing, morphic resonance. Then the mind and the heart can be allies again. So basically what I'm saying is, please do not take the bait offered that comes along with this knowledge of what's happening in the Amazon, the bait of diverting onto hatred, onto the blame of people that are, of actors that are actually just symptoms. Don't get caught up in that, and don't get caught up in the despair. Those are all lies that short circuit our full creative power as change agents. Stay in what you know. Recognize your step toward the service of life, the service of healing. Find your willingness and readiness to take that step. You might even feel it right now. And that confidence, that almost naive confidence, that you will have the awareness and the courage to take that step as it presents itself. And that will be enough. That is your job. And that there is a larger intelligence operating on this planet that's not external to it, that's woven into this planet, a larger intelligence that knows where to put you in its healing. This is not a spiritual bypass from what's happening in Brazil. It's not a substitute for action. It is a principle, an orientation underneath any action that we might take. And just see how it lands in you. By their fruits ye shall know them. Does it make you more passive to think in this way or less? Does it make you paralyzed? Or does it make you energized, willing? I hope that a lot of people listening to this really do take that step into trust and into the action that comes from the trust. Because you're creating a morphic field that helps me do that too. I'm not immune to the despair or the rage. I just recognize it as not very useful. Thank you.
Wow. You can see why I grabbed that video and brought it forward. You know, when I was sitting with this early this week, I had a pretty significant week in my spiritual progression. I came to the 1-year anniversary of my walkabout, and it was probably 5 years in the wishing and 1 year in the actualizing, where I pretty much stepped away from my old identity, my old life, by design and by divine intervention. I was, you know, in a place to sit very, very still and quiet this year, recovering from my Achilles rupture. And I started off my journey a year ago this week, heading to Burning Man in my little RV by myself, 60-year-old grandma, never done anything like that before. But I decided I wanted to feel my edges. I wanted to understand what my boundaries of comfort felt like. And I had for so long merged into my life, my loves, my family. I didn't know where I ended and where the world began. I wanted to reestablish what are my boundaries: emotional, physical, spiritual, food, entertainment, the way I want to spend my time. What are the appetites that are natural to my body that have been suppressed and depressed for so long? And so anniversaries are meaningful if we let them be. If we lean into the truth of the movement, we can harvest from that backwards perspective, that hindsight perspective. What were the gifts of my walkabout? What were the leanings and the stirrings and the understandings that came forward? And so I was in that deep inner appreciation and gratitude as everything's been happening this week with the escalation of our climate awareness, our escalation of our republic deconstruction. I think we are all becoming painfully aware of how truly out of control things feel. And I was reminded of this download that I got several months ago about the boomerang, and I've mentioned it before in one of my other videos, where it's we as a human idea have this trajectory that we're on, but it's not linear. It has a repeating element to it. And so if you think about the boomerang and how it shows up from its actual physics explanation, and begin to think in terms of the human experience mapping that, I just want you to hold that view, because I'm going to share another video with you. This is just a couple minutes, maybe 5. And it's the science, the physics of the boomerang. And then when we come back on the other side, I want you to begin to connect the dots with me about what's happening all around us and how it relates to that boomerang, and feeling in your own belly where you think we are on that arc of return back to love, back to ourselves. So when he talks about the lift, the two wings and how they move, think about love and fear as a proxy for that. And so we'll talk.
How does a boomerang work? Well, it relies on three fundamental principles: lift, relative velocity, and gyroscopic precession. Now, a traditional Australian boomerang is basically just two wings stuck together, and both generate lift that keeps the boomerang in the air. But the thing is, as the boomerang is rotating, the top actually rotates with the direction the boomerang is moving, while the bottom is rotating in the opposite direction. So air flows faster over the top of the boomerang, creating more lift than over the bottom. So those unequal forces generate a torque. And you might expect that torque to flip the boomerang over, but it doesn't. And that's because the boomerang is thrown with a very fast spin. So that spin means that the boomerang has angular momentum, a significant amount of it. And if you want to figure out which direction that is, you put your fingers of your right hand in the direction of rotation and your thumb points in the direction of the angular momentum. So as it's spinning, that torque actually changes the angular momentum. It changes the angular momentum in the direction of the torque. And the torque in this case is back towards me. So the angular momentum is changed to point around at me, which allows this boomerang to execute its curved path and come back to where it started. Now that phenomenon is known as gyroscopic precession. Now if you want to see an awesome boomerang shot, you got to check out How Ridiculous. They tried to split an egg with a boomerang.
Okay, let's talk about that boomerang for just a minute before we go through this slide. I picked up something new, and I've watched that video like 16 times, because every time I do, I pick up another parallel theme in the human trajectory as that the piece this time. So let me back up a little bit, because this is kind of a big idea to get your head wrapped around. This idea that we are on this moving, spinning, energetic rotation on a path that has kind of a light and dark, an opposite, a polarity expression of sort of a lift and drag, and that love and fear are the polarity of the human experience, and that we're wobbling out in our human experience, and we're out of sync right now, and that angular momentum is what's pulling us at such a jerk forward, these moments where our whole bodies just go into surrender to the grief of the Amazon on fire, and then the lightness of rain arriving to heal that moment of knowing for a moment that there was some hope in the picture, that love, that we could love our way home to this. There's so many people who are awake to the grief that they were feeling, and grief is ultimately grace. It is an invitation to love what is happening. And so the fires, the earth signs that are coming forward right now are like that movement on the boomerang. And if the human experience is spinning out there, and we've got these almost torque jerk moments, you can feel your own physiology going through a major shift from sort of analog frequencies to digital frequencies to now crystalline frequencies. And I don't even understand the physics of that, but it's that exponential explanation that lines up within my own body, that begs for words to explain it. And I think that's the piece that we're all struggling with. We're feeling the transformational tension, that movement of being out of balance. That wobble has that torque, and it's disruptive. And it's disruptive in lots of good ways as well as challenging ways. It's that arc of movement that has that polarity built into it, that we are in this rebalancing, if you will, of our energies from dark to light. And it's spinning everything. And as we begin to reach the apex of that movement, that angst, that existential exhaustion of what's happening, the deconstruction and demoralization of our society, the inner yearnings that we are to go on a walkabout, to leave a career, to leave a lover, to emancipate from our lives that are not serving us anymore in whatever frame we want to put that. It's all in service to this momentum, this angular momentum of realignment that's necessary in order to bring us back home to our true nature, which is love. And so I don't know who threw the boomerang, who created enough velocity of movement, but maybe it's just the velocity of love. I love that song by Suzanne Tiani. It's been years, but it was what we played at our wedding. And it's just coming forward to me now that the velocity of love only knows one movement, and that is expansion. It only knows how to find more love. And if you think about the human experience, it is in service to finding more love. And to find more love, we have to go so deep in our cellular, visceral acceptance of the human experience, to fall in love with the human experience exactly as it is in its wobbling out in its trajectory to bring itself back home. This is individual and collective. Many of us are in our individual wobbles where our life has been out of balance, and now everything's speeding up, and whole structures around us are crumbling. Our relationships, our economics, our security, things that we used to count on are no longer serving us and no longer available to us. Even if they were imperfect, they were something. And so we're heading into such a destabilizing, disorienting, disruptive movement as we work our way in the arc of the boomerang. We don't know what to hold on to. We don't know what to pay attention to. We don't know what to connect with as we're spinning out into space. And so there's the fear side of the enablers, and then there's the love side of the enablers. And the fear side are the things I was just talking about, that existential exhaustion. Your body just can't carry any more stress, any more disappointment, any more anger, any more rage, any more anything. There's a sort of whateverness to all of it. And that means we take even the most blessed things as a oh whatever, and the darkest things as an oh whatever. We're flatlining in our feelings because we're numbing out of them. They're so extreme, and we need help tuning to this new reality in our bodies. We need help connecting with the inner guidance system that's trying to, awaken in us that realignment. It's like the pilot light has been sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting for somebody to come along and push the button and push it. You know how you have to light a pilot light on a stove? Anybody who's ever done this, you have to push it down and hold it in. We used to have, physically or viscerally, right back to laying on my belly in our house in our first home together with Stephen and I, and we had those old-fashioned wall heaters where you got to get down on your belly, push it, hold it long enough for the pilot light to give some a breath of ignition to it to fully engage the fuel that's ready to burn up inside the heater. And that's kind of what's happening right now, is these really dark, scary, frightening things are all tied into holding that pilot light down, getting enough of the gas in the chamber, enough of the shared breath of knowing in the chamber to ignite us back into our fullness of light. And so there's the fear side of those enablers, and then there's the upside, the love side of those enablers. And I see it all around me in the storytellers. My first download 5 years ago, right after my mom passed, was all about storytelling. And I see it everywhere right now. It's just exploding. And storytelling is in art, it's in music, it's in dance, it's in theater, it's in drama, it's in beat poetry, it's in rap music. It's the storytellers are bringing forward the inner knowing of our truth as light beings in human form. And the sacred plants are enabling this storytelling. They are part of the fuel that lights us up, right? They're blowing on our pilot light, reminding us to trust our bodies, to surrender our bodies to the healing process. I have been healed at so many levels of my story that sorry, I live in the real world, right? This is the truth of it all. So we are feeling into our realignment with our highest knowing, and that has created it's so hard to stay present in the channel with other things. There we go. So I will move on and come around as it chooses to. I trust all things at all times to be enablers of what's important in the next moment. I'll come back to sacred plants. So change is afoot on a cellular level, on a global level, on a frequency level. And that is part of the angular momentum that we feel the shift in our bodies, as Charles so brilliantly articulated, that we don't know what the plan is. We just have to know what the next step in the plan is. The next right yes step to live in the integrity of our highest truth is enough orientation to trust the next step. And so we're moving into this era of reacquainting ourselves with our highest knowing. Who are we? And the plants, thank you, they're back. The plants create the bridge in the know thyself part of this story. We have to understand what our timeline has been here to teach us. All of the wounding, all of the movement of our soul through its gyrations of up and down and forward and backward and connection and disconnection and healed and brokenness, and all of it is a story wanting to be told. And so when we can own our story from the lens of love, those rose-colored glasses, rather than the lens of fear, what was wrong with me, but what were the lessons I learned from all the experiences, even the hard ones, even the hardest ones. Oh, this is why we can't become conscious sitting on a yoga mat doing meditation. We have to put ourselves and our truth out in the world, just like I am right here, showing up, plant medicines on board, fully activated, holding my light out in its most vulnerable place. I feel a little. The old me sits on my shoulder and looks down and says, "Are you out of your mind? You've been holding these internal conversations just fine for 60 years. Do you really think anybody even cares that what you have to say matters? That it's worth doing this? Even if nobody shows up." I invited so many people to show up today. And they all chose their own path, and that's a beautiful thing, but that doesn't alter mine. It doesn't diminish how passionately grateful I am that I'm finally speaking my truth, because in that movement, there is an ease of beingness that is the only way we're going to ride out the velocity of love. To so inhabit, embody, embrace, and make love to our light, our truth, our soul's expression in human form, the thing that we came to be and do. That's what this moment is for me, and I am a bridge. I am someone that shows up to invite others to take the next step in their truth. And to do that, we have to really understand the art of meaning making. This is where we have to look at our storyline, our personal timeline from the perspective of love, and understand that love is our source code. It is our essence of our human operating system, and we are here to embody that essence, that source code of love. And I love the Ubuntu. It is, if I have a previous life, I was an African goat woman, and so there is something so sacred and connective for me in this expression of the oneness in physical form, because it's really, that's what we signed up for. The remembrance that we are here as one in physical form. We've been in physical form in pure light, in pure energy, in the intelligence of the thrower of the boomerang, the collective intelligence. And I don't understand that source. It's beyond this physical knowing to express it, but I have experienced it. And the plant medicines have been my teachers in that experience. They have helped me bridge that experience back into words to help others recognize that their experience is a common shared experience. And when we remember that we come from a common source of connection, we begin to embody that in physical form. And so it is that embodiment, that Ubuntu of the oneness, that now is starting to take form. And as Charles was downloading his beautiful presentation to the world, I was downloading this, and I have to show you. It comes out in pieces of paper, and sometimes it comes out and they say record, and other times they say draw, and so then it takes me days to unpack it all, and in the unpacking comes new models, new frameworks of connection, new mycelial webbing of the human experience from that perspective of love, that we begin to connect to this moment from the student perspective, from this moment forward and from this moment back. That we are students of the shift, that we are enablers of the shift, that we are the activists of the shift. And so I, as you know, the Be Love breath is already birthed, and it's out there, and it's starting to create its own momentum, its own angular momentum, because as fear begins to find our deepest fears, our deepest insecurities, our external assault becomes an internal assault, and our fears become amplified. As we're going through that awareness, there's a corresponding softening for those that consciously show up in their breath in each of those moments. That breath is the antidote. It is the enabler of rebooting from fear to our core operating system, our source code to love. This is, breath is the antivirus to the malware of fear that has infected our human operating system. And so by taking a conscious breath together, and you can see, maybe can I point, and maybe you can see that, maybe you can't, but maybe there is a pointer here. See, I'll get the technology piece of this. There we go. So this piece right here, our heart, we all share. If you peel off our skin, our bones, our flesh, our structure, and you come down to the essence of what we know is our drumbeat, our rhythm of life, that heartbeat, right? That life has its potential when that heartbeat is in place. It doesn't reach the gateway of potential until it takes its first breath. And so that first breath, to agree to be born into the human experience, that first breath is our breath of consciousness. And we are taking in the whole world from a state of pure consciousness. And so depending on what we encounter upon arrival, that pure state can be received in love and cherish and nourish, and little by little develop separateness, that ease from the oneness to the individual expression can be soft and gentle in the arms of a loving environment. But dang it all, not all of us get that. Most of us get this situation where we get damaged, and that environment is hostile, and we put up protection and barriers and boundaries, or dissolve the natural separation of who you are and who I am is gone because we've been, our pure state was assaulted instead of eased into our physical being. We are initiated into our physical being. And really, initiation is what it is to be born. It's to surrender some part of who we were to arrive in some newer expression of who we are. And what we gave up was this remembrance, what I'm saying, these words that on one level feel so Pollyannish. We can hardly imagine that this is the truth of our human existence, except that it touches us on a vibrational level. There's a frequency that resides in us, and especially those who have embraced cannabis as one of their teachers, because this channel is a cannabis loving channel. It is an open source communication from Dagama to all of those who have cannabis in their systems to up-level their relationship with cannabis to one of sacred communion, sacred connection to our highest knowing. Cannabis is the plant that has suffered the human experience so intimately. She wasn't kept sacred in the jungle or sacred on the mountaintop or sacred underground. She was put into the human experience to experience the fear and the persecution and the projection, and she became a sacrificial plant for the expansion of consciousness to the masses. And so this frequency is unique, just as each of us hold a frequency that is unique. And for anyone that has cannabis in their bodies, that plant teacher is always there, even if our intention was not as clean and pure as it is in this moment. But we trust that she will awaken to the height of her expression as you embrace the height of your expression. She is a bridger. She will go where you take her, and she will lead you there. It is a co-creation of this moment where we're all showing up, knowing that our core is love and that we're in the velocity of love. And that heart place is the drum beat. But when we begin to consciously breathe together with the Be Love app, the top of every hour, somebody's going to show up in the world, not with this app where it's 1 minute for all of us to connect together in breath. Yeah, I want to get there, but I need an app. I'm calling it in right now. And that's why I'm going to ask you all to exhibit some social capital in the world and share this to help me identify and connect with others who can feel this frequency, who can hear this message and feel the resonance, the morphic resonance in their bellies for what I'm about to share with you. This Be Love app will go off at the top of every hour, and it will invite a breath of awareness to all those that are awake to this moment with me. You'll breathe that in, knowing that we are here to love and be loved, that we are here as an expression of love, and even the darkest elements of who we are an expression of our path back toward that love, that reunification in the oneness that we are, but now in physical form. All the pain, all the suffering, all the lottery of birth over and over again have been in service to this wobble, this out of balance between the masculine and the feminine, the fear and the love. And those two are not representative of the other. They are in a unique and complicated dance between the patriarchy and the surrender of the feminine in that movement. We have all experienced all of it at all the different times and places of our existential existence. And it is that knowing, that infinite point of connection that is unthinkable in the human body alone. That is what the plant medicines remind us of and ignite a knowing, that pilot light within us that brings that forward into our daily expression. And so when we breathe together, we are owning that truth. We are witnessing that truth with each other. And that is a harmonized intention. That doesn't ask anything more than a wish from each and every heart as it exists on this planet in this moment. A wish that we can love each other. I don't care what you believe beyond that, but if you can hold that note, that om of shared breath together, that we are here to love each other, and we know that because our biology tells us so. It reminds us that we get sick. We don't thrive without connection. We enter a state of dis-ease, and we are now manifesting that dis-ease, that disconnection with our own highest light into the world. Everything outside of us is a manifestation of what is inside of us. And I mean that in the collective moment. We are all a reflection of the collective. Some of us carry more light, some carry more shadow. And it is in our shared breath, as the clock reminds me right now, this is whatever time this is and you are present to this moment, take this breath with me, because right now there's a community that is already forming of people who have taken a harmonized breath together, and we are feeling the visceral shift that's coming forward in this moment to a raise in our voice, trusting our voice, trusting the wisdom that wants to come through us, opening the throat chakra, feeling the expansion of the throat to hold all, not just what's in the physical body, but that expansion. 2 nights ago, a beautiful sister sat with me, and we felt into this expansion, this acceptance, this trust that what we can actually now begin to tap into within our bodies is our normal neural state of high frequency awareness. And we do that by first breathing the doors off of our fear, breathing the doors off of our doubts, breathing the doors off of our wounding, so that we can see it all within the spectrum of light that it delivered to bring you to this moment of integrity, integration of your soul with your human experience. You consent to the human experience with all the light and all the dark and all the range of experiences that we get to experience, including this moment of existential grief, especially for this moment of extreme fear, because that's the magnitude of torque that's necessary to create the angular momentum to make the shift, to come home to ourselves. So we raise our voice and we come together in song, and a beautiful sister I share the planet with has brought that so acutely into my soul this week, especially in the time that I've known her. She's brought song to me, and I can't memorize the words. I've always looked at it as a deficit. My TED Talk, I couldn't memorize it, and I went into full channel because there was no holding the words in a particular orientation. I just had to surrender them. And this channel that I hold now is a surrender to whatever it is. And song is a surrender for me. I have to feel it. I have to cellularize it into my body. And I think there are a lot of us that have that experience, that music for us isn't our physical expression, but it is a cellular yearning. And to reconnect with the music of our soul is part of this movement, this map that I've been shown, this scribble, this beautiful download that is now sort of what are the enablers of the shift for us personally and collectively. So we move into a place where we're integrating the I am model as this beautiful Venn diagram of mind, body, and soul, and what are the enablers and the sacred questions that we unlock. That's a whole nother piece of the downloads that have come for 5 years that I'm able to unpack today because you invited me into a morphic field of resonance with you to witness that. So that is a birthing that's coming. And that is an enabler of our throat chakras, our voice, to speak our truth. And then to embody that is the next piece, which is where we begin to really harmonize our connection between each other, that we build the unity field through this song that we all share. And we start with singing from our computers at home and learning a song a day, a song a week, that we all begin to harmonize around that. And then we step out into the physical world and we join a chorus and we sing with others and we bring out our drumming and our dancing and our voice, not in dissent with each other, but in song with each other. That we create song circles that create waves of connection where we, for a few short hours, a day, a month, a week, however we tune in, that becomes the soundtrack of our life. That becomes the next field, the morphic field that we get to take our first steps together in. That we find our connection in our voice, in our bodies, in dance and song and drumming. And we bring our heart consciously into the collective through drumming. And I think about all the sacred teachers and soul spinners that are in my world right now and how there's a place for every one of them to dance in this morphic field, creating that morphic resonance by design, by divine design, coming out of each of us, that our expression is the gift we bring to the healing of the Amazon. It is the gift we bring to the violence in the streets. It is the gift we bring to the suffering of those who are so far ahead on the scarcity curve that we're facing. Empathy for our brothers and sisters is how we find our own security going forward, that what they're suffering from, they are the canaries in the coal mine. We are not separate. We have to wake up. We have to show up. This is the call, the moment when we feel it viscerally in our bodies. It is that reckoning with our own soul that is being ignited in this moment. And so we begin to embody our truth. And we show up in videos and taking risks with the people we love to tell them what our truth is. In the intimate spaces of how we show up consciously with each other, in the random interactions where fear has been the driving factor before, but now we go out of our way to say, hey, I see you, I'm breathing with you. The top of the hour, there's no shame in showing up with the app and going, I'm breathing with you. And what happens is the architects of love that are going to show up in the field after watching this, they will know how to build that architecture so that it feeds back a visual feedback of where we're breathing. And we can begin to isolate soul pods that we can breathe into our soul pod. We can witness each other. We know somebody's going in for surgery or somebody's suffering in some way, and we can direct our breath to our brothers and sisters. We can find empathy from a distance until we can find it all the way up to even those who've harmed us the most. It is a path, and we have to lean into the path, and beginning to see it take hold across the world encourages us, enheartens us to continue to trust that even the most unforgivable things, even the most challenging things that we have done and had done to us, will find the heart space to heal that we can't expand that much. It doesn't feel possible because our ego, our protections that kept us safe when we didn't land in a soft landing. Some of us had a really bumpy ride into the human experience, and we've lost faith that love really is the default. But when we see it happening around us, even those last bits of self-hate start to disintegrate in the face of that much love. And I know that's true because I see what's happening in the face of fear. And I know that there's an equal and opposite reaction. Our physics of this movement, the velocity of love, tells us it's possible. That as much as we are seeped in fear, with a conscious breath of unity together that we can witness in each other, we can begin to believe and trust, a new trust in our bellies, a reignited trust of knowing what our truth is. We'll see it play out through technology. And that's cool because we're going to turn these fear-based devices into love amplifiers. We'll be in the love business. Every business has to be in the love business. 30 years of teaching organizations how to distill down to what their essence is, and then how to manifest that out in the world. I thought it was just for the businesses that I worked with, but I understand that that's the expansion that will shift everything. That's the expansion. We're going to go through torque, but the enablers of the torque can soften some of those hard edges. And we hear organizations talking about stakeholder value now, not just shareholder value, recognizing that there is no monopoly in shareholding, because whatever happens, even the shareholders are subject to the fall. So it has to be an all-win situation. Love only knows one direction, expansion. We all win in the end. We either do this out of desperation We show up consciously in breath because we believe it's possible and that we are that powerful and that we are ready to step into the truth of our existence. We do that and everything changes. And this shift, this morphic resonance that our brother Charles was talking about, this is, oh, go back. I love technology. There we go. So much easier when I just get to do this on paper, but this morphic resonance starts with each of us taking a breath together and then finding a song to sing together and then coming out into community to share our embodiment of that breath, to sing and dance and tell stories and hear each other's stories through the lens of love. To heal out loud, to take the shame out of owning our truth, to take the ego out of the story is how we heal our timeline. And when we can heal our timeline, we can begin to expand that, to understand that humanity's timeline has a lot of healing and that we are all just symptoms of all the unconsciousness, the compendium of tears that we've generated over thousands of years. This is our moment to look at our timeline with a lens of forgiveness. And in that comes the self-forgiveness for whatever we didn't show up in our best light about. We get all that static off of the line, off of the channel between ourselves and our highest light, and all there is morphic resonance. And we become a community again. And we have a harmonic convergence where we show up, sleeves rolled up, arms out, open-sourced, open-hearted, free-flowing with our highest intelligence, pouring all of the ideas into artificial intelligence to sort through and find the solutions that take all of our mistakes of the past and make them into the healing tools of the future. I see plastic becoming our entire infrastructure, that all of our empty properties become communal homes of healing and bridging between poverty and security. We ought to be able to dream a world where we can show up where the baseline of human experience is tended as a ritual of love for each other. That reimagines healthcare, well-being, food, land, ag. It reimagines everything. And as Charles said, we don't know exactly how this is all going to come together. We just know that it is in the field of pure potentiality, that we can step into this if we make a choice to show up from a place of love. And that even means loving the broken bits of ourselves, getting out of the way of the healing process, because this is the truth of what we signed up for. This moment, this angular momentum, this gyrational torque, this balance, this polarity, and this out of balance of lift and drag, divine masculine, divine feminine, This is the death of the patriarchy, and they will fight it because the fear of letting go of that construct of security, puffed up by ego, reinforced and justified over and over and over again out of a value proposition of worth, of supremacy, whether that be religious, economic, or gender, or white. We've just created supremacies on every level. And none of that is real. It's a human construct. It's not who we are, and we know that in our bodies. We can feel the disconnection painfully, viscerally in this moment, that we aren't holding that truth as our holy existence. But fear not, because there are people out there who are starting to use their throat chakra, speak their truth into the light, hold more light without fear of recrimination, without holding out for recognition or status, just speaking truth to bring others out of the shadows and into their truth. The bridgers are the ones that will take the biggest hits, who will carry the most grief, but that's okay. They're wired for it. I understand my grief now. I understand the context of my story and how it's in service to showing up in this moment. And that is the work for all of us right now. That is the healing conversation, that we all show up in our fullest expression without fear. Mm-hmm. Without fear. That's when the love can come into it. And you can love your story, all of it, even the biggest parts, the hardest parts. I can look at my wounding and see that it brought me to my light. I can see the wounding of the planet and that it will bring us to our light. I can see the wounding of the human experience and see it. Be conscious to it in this moment that we're coming into our light. And I want you to feel that in your body. And if it doesn't ring true for you, then you're operating on a different theory of everything. And I honor your path, but it doesn't alter mine. But if it does resonate for you in your body, if the frequency of this storytelling plays well in the frequency of your storytelling, your meaning making, your theory of everything, then this is a call to action, my love. This is a moment to step into your morphic resonance field and start creating your soul pod around you, asking your brothers and sisters to step up in their light, to share their bundle out loud, to speak your light out loud, to be witnessed in your light. I'm telling you, it does a really good job of mitigating all the other pieces of your story that still hurt. Because you begin to say, a lot of my hurt was because I was so afraid to step into this truth that I kept compromising and compromising. You heal your timeline when you step into your light with humility, with fear in the sense of you don't want to overski, you don't want to underski, you just want to trust that what your body is telling you is your absolute truth, that that's how you show up, whatever that is. And when your body is out of alignment, check your truth. Check your truth. Find out what you're lining up with. I go in and out of this knowing. This is, I'll be dancing in this embodiment phase of this light for probably the rest of my days. We all will. But it's incremental. And the more we do it, the more those around us younger than us will trust theirs. And the more they trust theirs, they will raise it into the next generation. This is a multi-generation model. It isn't just individually finding our conscious breath together, but humanity finding its conscious breath together. This is going to take some real hard deconstruction and death and demolition of the old ways, including leaders who are now so driven by their fear of what's happening in the world that they've projected it into their policies. They've aligned and colluded with others that are coming from that place of fear, and so our entire power structures are not worthy of the fight. What is worthy of the fight is showing up in love, not fear. We have to completely reboot our perspective. When we feel discomfort, lean into it and ask, what am I afraid of? How do I meet that fear? How do I show up in a place of love, even when things feel so far from it? And if it's just a smile, and if it's just a greeting where there hadn't been one before, if it's just a shared breath on a phone with 16 people sitting on the subway, and pretty soon everybody looks around and notices and wants to know what's going on. And we got a whole new story to tell. A story that has a happy ending. A story that brings us closer together, even in the heart of chaos. For it's in that heart of chaos that we find our deepest peace. Aho. Oh wait, there's more. Check out these guys. Check this out. And all the others. And I want their, so there's the phone and the breathing, and you get to see who's breathing and where, and we can direct it, and soul pods. But then behind all that architecture, this is for the really big brains. It's an open architecture where all the ideas are getting sunk into a non-proprietary database of expanded technologies and maps. And we don't edit each other. We just let that divine creative light find a receptacle. And the CIA is the collective intelligence agency where they're organizing the collective intelligence for solutions from a place of love, not control from a place of fear. See, we just have to tweak our institutions. It's an angular momentum. It can happen with a choice. And if you want to know more about the cool stuff that shows up in my field and wants to show up in your field, wants to find a morphic resonance with other souls out there, then come find me and link up with me. And if you are part of the morphic solution party to bring this app into the human story, then please reach out to me. We are the ones we're waiting for. Now it's a final owl. Oh, it's always tricky turning this off. There we go.